Maybe you remember how on Seinfeld, George Costanza would leave his car parked at the office on purpose so that his boss would think he was working long hours. That's an attempt to take advantage of what psychologists call input bias, the tendency to use the signs of effort to judge outcomes, when actually the two may have little to do with each other. In my research at Harvard Business School and my book, Sidetracked, I've studied how difficult it is to accurately measure performance, our own and our employees. Let's examine the problem and discuss what you can do about it. One of the biggest challenges is to stop confusing effort with outcomes. In one study, researchers showed people a short presentation and then asked them to rate its quality. Some were told the presenter spent 8 hours preparing, others were told they spent just 30 minutes. Not surprisingly, people who thought the speech took 8 hours to prepare gave it higher ratings. To avoid getting sidetracked by red herrings like this when evaluating performance, make sure your metrics are meaningful. Let me tell you about another experiment. In this one, graduate students grading papers were asked to count either the number of papers they completed or the number of pages, which was obviously bigger. Even though both groups did the same amount of work, the people counting pages gave themselves a higher productivity rating. Make sure you're counting something that matters. You should also examine your incentives. For years, IBM used to pay programmers based on the lines of code that they produced, even though programmers are generally more efficient when using fewer lines of code. Even good incentive systems can have unintended consequences. I once worked with a retailer that tried to motivate employees with specific sales targets tied to monthly bonuses. Right away, performance improved. But a few months later, the company realized that employees were buying extra merchandise themselves in the last week of every month to hit their target, then returning it the next week. This brings me to my last piece of advice. Make sure you zoom out and look at the whole picture. Once the retail managers look at monthly and weekly data, it was obvious what was going on. Yet you see the same problem in lots of companies. So before you judge how productive your people are, ask if the data in front of you tells the whole story. And do not assume the employee with his car in the parking lot the longest is the one delivering the best results.